Welcome to another episode of the Booktroverts podcast with your two favorite gals. I'm McKayla.
I'm Meg.
And today is our second book club episode. We read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. In this episode, we're going to be sharing our review, thoughts, the many, many questions I know I have about what we read. So this is a warning that the episode will contain spoilers. So if you have not read the book yet, I would suggest pausing the episode and then coming back after you've read it. But Meg, do you want to give us a little summary of the book?
Yes. I'm going to give the summary that they had on Goodreads because I have comments afterwards. So it is an assassin for a rebellion group, Rafe, who is the main character. It is Rafe's job to complete orders, never get caught, what's expected of an assassin. When a rival bounty hunter turns her world upside down, blood spills, hearts break, and Rafe finds herself imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles, a group of powerful fae who turn her into a political statement. So, crushed with the loss of his great love, Khan Vager, I think I'm saying that right, took the head of a king and donned his melted crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ebbing ache in his chest, he is lured by a clue into the capital's high-security prison where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rafe. And echoes of their past race between them. There's more to the story than that meets the eye, but some truths are too poisonous to swallow. I'm going to pass it over to you first, McKayla, on what your thoughts were, but immediately I just have comments.
Immediate comments for me as well. First of all, I gave this book a 2.5 star.
I did a 3, so pretty close, yeah.
2.5. That was generous. And I have to tell you, I have read this summary multiple times. Like, while reading the book, middle of the book, reading this summary. Can I tell you, reading the summary multiple times, finishing the entire book, the 719 pages the book was, there were fae.
I didn't realize they were fae.
Because I didn't pick up on that. I had no clue they were called the Guild of Nobles.
Is that never mentioned? Because when I'm reading this, I go, I don't remember this up until right now reading it.
There also was the name of the rebellion group included in the summary, but I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I took it out.
I honestly thought it was Fleur de Oth or something in my head. That's how I was saying it. I don't even think that's remotely close to it, but...
But, are they all fae? I'm confused.
I think so.
Is she fae?
Okay, I think so because I think at one point they talked about the clipping of the ears when you're a null and you can't hear the
Oh yeah, I thought that was just
sounds.
Distinguish you have beads or clipped ears.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I don't know.
I didn't realize they were fae, but that makes sense because then the time frames, I was like, wow. She sounds pretty young in this, but it sounds like he's been looking for her for a while, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. The other part of the summary that I must give a comment on. He is lured by a clue into the capital's high-security prison. What was the clue? Because I feel like she was in the prison, and next thing I know, he was... someone was walking by with, a slop cart for her to get dinner.
Yeah.
Flash forward, it's the next day, and he's just walking down the hallway.
Yeah, we don't ever find out what the clue is. If we did,
we didn't find that out. I didn't just miss that.
I have no idea what this meant because I thought he was just hanging out in this prison. Obviously we find out that it's his brother's realm because they each kind of have their own thing. So I just thought he was visiting his brother and looking at some prisoner just because. I have no idea what it was. The only thing I can think of is the clue, and I'm doing air quotes here, is the fact that he saw her the night she was singing.
Yeah, I guess I just thought he, worked for the prison.
Yeah.
And then I remember I didn't even connect the singing part. We were like far into the book at this point. And I texted you saying, just want to clarify, is he the guy from the beginning? And you had to be like, yes, he is. That is the connection. Because I wasn't sure.
You know, it's funny though, because until you text me that, I had to go back and triple check because granted, with reading it on a Kindle, as much as I love reading on a Kindle, it's so tough to go back and forth between pages. So you know how this book obviously had the map and it had the explanations of all the characters and the places, all that fun stuff, which was going to be helpful. However, I couldn't go back because I had to pause and then flash back. It's not like an actual book that I can just quickly flip in front of my face and say, oh yes, that's what we're talking about here. So until you text me, I was just assuming many things.
Yeah. That is also one of my like main points that went into my rating. Honestly, played a very huge role for me. Is I feel like, one, when I started the book, and I remember you had started before me and you're like, oh my God, there's this really detailed map. There's a huge glossary in the beginning. And I was like, wow, this is great. We both were looking at it very positively. But when you're starting the book and you're immediately thrown into a 20-page glossary of here are going to be all the terms, and this is what everything means, when you've not even gotten into the stories, it's like reading a dictionary.
Yes, I agree.
It's very hard to understand and keep that information. So then when you're going through the book, my biggest gripe about the book, and I think this really was frustrating me, is I'm totally fine if you want to have different breeds of dragons and you want to have different ways that time is represented, and like they were calling them slumbers and auroras, like those were different like days, months, whatever, like they're naming for time. I'm cool with that. But you need to explain it in the actual book. And I did not feel like the author did that. It was just like, we're going right in, and it's an aurora, it's a slumber, it's a moon plume. That's how you say it. And the expectation was on the reader, oh, if you don't know this, you need to go back to the glossary at the beginning and look it up.
Yeah.
And I did not like that, because your book should stand on its own. And I should be able to pick up from context clues what these different things are. And some of them you could, but I couldn't even tell you what is a slumber, what is the aurora cycle, what are the moon phases, like whatever those, the time was really throwing me off, and I could not get a grasp. Obviously I could tell like which ones were shorter and which ones were the longer ones, but what do they equate to?
I'm with you. It's funny. The slumber and the day or whatever they called it was the only thing I think I actually understood from the entire thing, because once they turned into, like you were saying, the cycles and the phases of the moon, maybe I feel like I'm bringing it
the diary entries. I had no clue what that meant.
I don't know. And then I had to keep referencing back to what After Stone was, and I guess that was basically when Elwyn's mom has the crown with the stone in it. But I just didn't understand why it was in their I don't know. It was just, there was a lot of questions that I have I think I have more questions than answers that I was interested in.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And so that was just irritating. So like, I'm all for you want to world build, you want to create something.
Yeah.
But I should be able to pick up the book and be able to figure out the world building, because you're info dumping or you're giving me the context clues to figure it out. And I feel like details were not included in the book because they just were like, there's a glossary at the beginning, they can go back. And to that, it was extremely frustrating because, one, I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but I just know what I see on, BookTok. Majority of people read on a Kindle or an e-reader. And like you were saying, it is difficult to flip back and forth on a device like that unless you are on the start of a chapter. Like I'm on chapter 71 and I need to now go back to the glossary to look up this one word. But if I'm on a random page in the middle of a chapter, I'm going to have to click the bottom of my Kindle to get that location number.
Yeah.
And remember it. I'm not doing that work. So I just was like, I'll just keep going. And then I could not get into the story because I was so confused about the terms. And I'm like, I refuse to spend my time flipping back and forth to this glossary because you think that that's what I should do. I'm like, why am I doing work? I should just be able to read this book. I feel like she wanted me to do work. Even when you're reading a regular book on a Kindle, if you don't know the word, you can highlight it and a dictionary comes up. I don't need to read my books with fucking Webster's dictionary next to me and be like, what does this term mean? I don't like that.
It's so tough because it had so much promise. That was the first thing I wrote down after we finished the book was it had so much promise, and I actually liked the ending the most. I liked how it started to build up in terms of, you know,
what, like the 85% mark?
Yes, it basically was the last 15% that I really, really liked. There's a couple other things that I wanted to highlight on that I wasn't super thrilled on, and maybe it's just because I've read so many other books that do the slow burn better. But basically, the second half was probably my preferred of the entire book. And I know I'm kind of referencing a little bit back to how A Court of Thorns and Roses was, yes, it was super slow, but that one, it felt meaningful in the slow and, you know, the just slow description. But this one, I was just so confused. And my notes were, who is this person? Wait, what are they doing? Why do we have this person here? And there were so many characters, and I just didn't get enough of them, though, to understand what they were or what they were doing. It was just, here's some random character that you need. You'll probably find them, I'm guessing, in book 2 and so on and so forth on how many the series would be. So it was a little bit too much introduced too quick is my thing. I think if we got rid of a lot of it, it probably would have been better overall.
I completely agree. So I feel like we have like the same thoughts, and like I think it could be summed up with just like the world building was not executed correctly in the book, and there was a lot of potential for it. But I just feel like you can't rely on, well, I gave you 20 pages in the front of the book before you even started this.
Yeah.
Hope you remembered it. Hope you studied it like it's a college test. Memorize these and hope you keep remembering what they are over the next 700 and whatever pages.
Yeah.
And then I completely agree about the characters. Random people were just introduced. The other thing, which ties into characters, but also ties back to my frustration with reading it on a Kindle, and I don't know if the physical copy experience would be different with this, at the very end, she puts in, so it's like who we find out is like Rave's daughter with Khan.
Yeah.
She ends up with, what the heck was it? The scavenger king? Yeah. And he asks her to sign her signature. And he gets the signature back from her, and he says she put a little sentence inside of her signature. And then they include a photo of the signature on the Kindle. Could you read it? No.
Was yours the size of a thumb?
It was this big. You can't zoom in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to read it, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. We're going to find out in the copy, like the actual book that I'm reading, what is said in this photo.
Yeah.
I still don't know what that sentence is.
I think it says...
I'm sorry. And for people who can't, like, see, like, be inclusive. In the audiobook, are they describing this photo that you've included? That pissed me off. And I was, you know what, though? It normally wouldn't have pissed me off, but because that was right at the, like, literally 97%. I was already so fucking done with this lady's writing style, like how she just wanted me to do work, like keep flipping it back to the front, back to the front, back to the front. I was like, now you're going to put in a picture that I can't even read?
I could tell you were not happy by the book based on your text message. You didn't elaborate. It was just I finished the book. Okay. There's nothing to this. There's no extra. Typically, you and I will add a couple comments, and I think I said, I have a couple. Yeah, you said all I have is questions, and I literally lost it because I can picture McKayla throwing this book down, even though it's a Kindle. I know you can't actually do that without damaging it, but, take a book off your shelf and throw it down and say, yes, I was so annoyed by this, but I could not stop laughing. And the picture, I went back. So I was going through my highlights.
You have the big Kindle too. You have the big Kindle Scribe. So if you can't read it on yours, then we definitely have issues.
I think it said basically, if you find this, kill him. I don't know that.
I'm glad you know. How did you figure that out? Did you have to get a magnifying glass? Because I have a Kindle Paperwhite.
I made the font a little bit bigger. And then I went back and forth between the pages, and somehow miraculously it zoomed in half the page.
Oh, I don't. Maybe I should open it on my phone and but
just zoom in.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you giving alt text for that photo to the audio listeners?
I know, and that was the thing.
She did not write inclusively for all reading platforms, and that's all I have to say. Also, if you were listening to this on audio, how the hell are you going back to the glossary? Did the audio person read the glossary to you in the beginning?
That's a great question because
it
pretty much was a mini.
I'm going to die on this hill. This book had no shot. This could have been the most fabulously executed book, but the fact that she didn't just give me definitions in the story, she wanted me to go to the glossary. I'm still, I've been talking about it for 10 minutes. I'm pissed. And the other thing, when you mentioned characters being introduced, I love a book with a different POV chapter.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times, because there's the artwork at the beginning of every chapter, do you know how many times I'm reading a chapter and I'm like, who the fuck is this? When did Rave end up here? I have to flip back to the beginning of the chapter and I'm like, oh shit, this is some completely other character's POV because it is hidden in the side of the dragon.
When it switched from Rave to Vea,
Could we get different artwork?
I didn't know. Thank you. Do a different dragon because each of them have...
different dragon. They had the same picture. It was just the name changed.
Yes, but what was hysterical was Vea was going back to the... I'm forgetting the name. It might have been the Shade or whatever area that one of her brothers is in. But I go, wait, wasn't Rave just in that little cocoon that her and Khan have?
Yeah.
Why is she in the snow all of a sudden?
Yeah. I had the same exact, and then I was like, oh, how about the chapter when we randomly just met the other?
Okay, I have so many comments on the other.
Who the fuck is the other?
So my whole thing, you just should look at my highlights.
I don't even know how to have an organized discussion about this because I just had to get all my upfront general thoughts about the book out, just the overall writing style and lack of consideration for readers across multiple different platforms. I literally don't even know how to break this up so we're organized. So I'm gonna let you, because all my things are huh? There was different dragons? What? How did she end up in a cell? So I'm gonna let you take the reins on.
Oh my God.
You give us the chunks and I'm just following you.
All right. So I started off with the beginning is slow. It picked up 50% in. And what was interesting was it really picked up when Khan was introduced, of course. I think you had put it earlier, but the assassin part.
She's an assassin, but she kills one time. And
so that
we find out it wasn't even her. It was the other.
Well, and that's where I started to get questions about the other. I go, okay, is this a multi-personality thing? I forget what movie it is, but it's the one that
Sybil.
the guy, the guy said, that wasn't me, that was Patricia. And it's really Patricia who did all this crazy stuff, So I was so confused because I didn't know who the other was at first. And then when we find out it's Rave in some form, and the fact that she does have access to all 4 of the magics, which I basically started giggling to myself last night. I don't know if you'll find this as funny as I did, but it's basically the Avatar The Last Airbender because it's earth, wind, fire, and water.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I literally looked over to Patrick. I go, what was that thing in Avatar? Oh, that was just what I read. He goes, excuse me?
Oh, she's an airbender.
Exactly. I go, oh, he's moving all the boulders around. But I I wish there was more with the magic, because I love the magic. It was super cool, and I think it could have been
Yeah,
better.
It just sounded like they were like just listening to songs.
Well, that was the other thing.
And then like one time she used the wind one to like squeeze someone's lungs.
Claude, she uses Claude to remove all of their air from their lungs.
The other.
Yeah. That one's terrifying, because then we get the other again at the end, and I know I'm totally fast forwarding here, but when she goes to kill Rec.
We need to talk about the other. Now, your interpretation of the other.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, when someone's interacting with her and, like, the other has taken over?
Yeah.
Do you think she visibly looks different and just the personality has switched? Or do you think she looks different, or do you think she looks like herself? It's just now this other personality has come in.
So I think she looks identical to what she is. However, there might be more of a sinister facial expressions to her. And the only reason why I lean that way is because Rec at the end, when she basically is in his room, he thinks he, purchased a whore for the night, and it ends up being her ready to kill him. He had said that, oh my God, she hunted me down. He knew her immediately without having any indication that it might have been a completely different person. So I think it's just more of that, maybe a crazed look in her eyes. Maybe it's just...
I want to just make sure that I understood that the same way other people have understood it. And that's what I thought. Like, maybe her eyes go black, or just kind of like a rabid...
Yes.
expression to her face. Like, she doesn't have control over, and something sinister has taken over. I just wanted to make sure that I interpreted that the same way, because I honestly am not confident in my thoughts.
The fact that you've given reins to me to go through this, yes, I can tell that we have some interesting thoughts on your side. But yeah, the other I had so many interesting things, because at the end, the other specifically says the host, who is Rave, isn't strong enough, or maybe confident enough to have all 4 of the elements. She's only comfortable to have the 2, because when the other starts showing that she can use flames and all of that stuff, it was said to be, well, my host is strong but not strong enough in some sense. So I just didn't know if this is the
like strong-willed, or like describing like weak as a person, not like physical strength, but
yes,
like personally she just wouldn't be able to mentally handle it. The other thing that the other points out at the end, like, we find out that the other enjoys eating flesh, but doesn't do it because the host did not appreciate when the other ate the finger.
So that was my thing. I literally have in here, what is the host, not the host, what is the other coming from? Is it I'm gonna go weird here. Is it a demon possessing her body and it's just taken form of Rave? Because when Rave fell, when her and her dragon fell from the sky, did it take over her in that moment and say, I'm gonna revive you and build you up to where you should be? Or is it literally just she does have multi-personalities and we don't get that until she's gone through such tragedy? I have so many questions of what the other is.
When did the other
appear
get in her body?
Yeah.
That is a really good theory, though, about when she fell and she technically died, because I think it's when she is with Vea for the first time, and I forget the woman's name, but basically like their version of a healer.
Yeah.
They're looking at her body, and remember they can see something in her heart. I think it was a dragon shard or something.
Yeah.
And they were like, don't tell Khan about this. So maybe that's how the other got in, like basically like brought her back to life and infiltrated the body that way.
Yeah, because I have so many different theories on where this other came from, because there's just so much we don't know. And at first, and I think we talked about it earlier before we started recording, was the journal entries or the diary entries from Elwyn. At first, I had no idea where this was going and who's this person and why are they important to the story. Mm-hmm. But there's just so much where they stopped giving us those, to then when we find Rave alive in the cell, or rather she's killing people, and we find out that she was in a cell getting tortured for a while. So I'm so curious what happened in that time gap, and I'm hoping the second book gives us more of that, because there's just so many questions I have unanswered that I need
I put
I need
that
some
in my
descriptions.
notes too. Like, okay, great. So we know we've gotten up to the point of she's pregnant, and because she's wearing the diadem thing,
Yeah.
is that how you say that word? Because she's wearing that, her body physically cannot handle being pregnant.
Yeah.
So, like, we see that point. And then how does she end up in this cell, not knowing anything about her life, not knowing how to write, how to speak,
I know.
and becoming this fighter, the fire lark or whatever she was.
It was so interesting because it basically was as if a second person came out but identical to Elwyn. You know what I mean? It was like a race of everything and start from fresh, but you're 20 something years old, body wise. So, but everything else is brand new. I was very intrigued on what happened and how
Did you
things
just hear
go.
my hiccup? I'm so sorry. It was the craziest hiccup. I'm gonna leave that in, but Jesus.
Jesus.
I hiccuped on it. It must be true. Yeah, I definitely think so. I did watch a little bit of the Fantasy Fangirls episode today.
Ooh,
with
tell
the
me
author. More. I only watched a little bit because I was just like, I don't know if I have the mental bandwidth for this right now. And this woman trying to tell me that she writes 3 drafts and she really wants to make sure it's fast paced and like the world building's clear. And I'm like, well, it wasn't. Do a 4th draft. Anyways, she did say that she's planning for it to be a 3-book series.
Okay.
So I do think a lot of the things that we have questions for will be addressed. I'm sure we'll get that time gap in between. But I need more information of why she ran off with the other brother. Why didn't she just tell them, like, hey, your dad is threatening these things to me?
You know, I thought that too, and I don't know if it was just she cared so much for them. It was one of those, I'm going to save you by sacrificing myself mentality. Because we do find that in so many different books, but...
Yeah, but she just seemed like such like a... I mean, definitely in the way that we meet her now, but when you're getting kind of the flashbacks and the diary entries, she definitely was a take-no-shits type of girl. You have that whole scene where she's at the dinner table and she's getting annoyed because they're not letting her eat the food she wants, and she's watching the dad be super mean to the daughter. Yeah. And she just stands up on the table, walks over, gets the meat, gives 0 fucks.
Yeah.
So she definitely seems like someone who is confident, doesn't really bow down to people. So I just thought that like seemed a little bit out of character to not at least be like, hey, so your dad is blackmailing me into this, so I'm gonna go with him and play nice, but like FYI, this is what's going on.
Yeah, plan your revenge.
Just, like, up and leave, like break that friendship that she had with Vea, break Khan's heart, and now he has no clue that this person out there is his daughter.
I know, that was so interesting because obviously neither brother knows, because I think if Tyra, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm going to totally butcher every single person's name in this book, but there's no way that he knows that it's not his daughter, because I think he would have killed Elwyn Rave earlier. Yeah. Because I suspect that he was... Either we're getting led to believe he killed her because he found out something, or someone else killed her for some other specific reason. And that's a huge gap that I think we'll find out over, the other 2 books that she'll have written. But there's just a lot of questions on how she switched when she fell. Why did her dragon fall? I don't understand why they fall. I was confused.
That confused me too. But yeah, we need those details. What happened that made her dragon fall that then killed her? How was she brought back to life? Who found her? How did she end up in the cell? So these are definitely questions for a future book. Yeah. The other thing, before I jump into like the moon thing that you just said, I was really confused of the family tree, and the world was confusing to me because And I'm like, who is in charge of what area? How are you all connected? I was having a really hard time keeping track of that. And I just wanted more backstory on the family. We obviously can understand that, the dad was kind of an ass. The mom died in childbirth with the sister. Yeah. But why is there so much tension between the brothers? That I was getting really thrown off. I wanted more of that stuff. And I feel like that's first book of a series type of material, setting the stage. Yeah. So it just goes back to your comment of like random characters being introduced with no warning, no background on them. And you're trying to read these POVs or read these storylines with them. But you're like, who are you? What significance do you hold?
Yeah. To your point about the brothers, the only thing I think we get at this stage is they aren't thrilled with Thea because of the fact the mother died during childbirth, and they all liked the mother. It seemed that the mom was pretty much the grounding
It's not her fault her mom died in childbirth. You probably didn't have good health care.
Right.
The conditions probably weren't good. It happens. It's not her fault. She didn't come out of the womb with like a dagger.
Right, and just slicing the mom afterwards. Thanks for birthing me.
I'm sure she would have wanted her mother too. Because she got stuck with that prick of a dad.
Yeah. And the horrible brothers too. I mean, Khan was the only good person in her life, if you really think about it.
Yeah. I know. I feel like we've been, especially me, extremely negative on this book. And I will say the relationship between Rave and Khan, I really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed his character. And he was probably the one character I had no confusion around. I felt like it was very straightforward. You knew his intentions. You understood what he was trying to do. Except for me just needing to clarify he was the guy from the beginning. I understood what was going on with his part. Yeah. And we got his backstory. He went with that group and he had to do that fight, whatever. He came, he killed the dad because he hated his dad. He's now building up an army to try and take down his brother. I've got that part of the book. Yeah. And he was so sweet to her. He's just been trying to put back together her dead dragon.
That was the sweetest.
In honor of her.
Oh my God, that broke my heart in that moment because honestly, if anyone I preferred out of the entire book, it was Khan in his story because just the fact though that he sat there and as soon as he saw the moon fall, I'm going to go and try to get every single piece and fight people and as much as I can just so I can have this dragon reconstructed in my basement. As creepy as that sounds.
It was so nice.
It was so sweet.
Shrine for her. Yeah. And now, I guess I did have one other point of confusion around his story. Again, back to the beginning. Did he know? Did he have a heads up that she was around and she was going to be performing at that club in the beginning? Or was that just happy coincidence? He happened to be there on his hunt to find pieces of this dragon, went into this club, sees this person singing and is like, oh, or sees her on the stairs first and is like, wait, that looks like my long lost love that I thought died.
I'm with you too.
To try and find her. That I would like to know.
I honestly think you're probably on the right path. There is that he probably was just there just by chance. In there, just hanging out, doing whatever he was doing. Which is crazy. But if we think about how many books we've read where, there's two people that mate, they bond, whatever wording they use, there is that sense of knowing where the person is or kind of can get that tingly sensation of, oh, someone's looking at me. Part of me feels like that's kind of what happened between the two of them, that even though they were split apart because of an agreement made years before she actually fell in love with Khan, there has to be something there that brought him there at that time to find her. There has to be.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes it more of a love story if,
I know.
His soul will always find her. Yeah. It's crazy, though. How's she going to react when she finds out she has a kid?
I was thinking about that, too, because that was the story I think he was going to tell her was, you can't erase me from your mind. We need to talk about something. There's someone else in this world who cares about you. I thought it was his brother for the longest time.
I thought it was the brother too, and I was like, why? Sounds terrible.
Right. I go, oh, wow, the brother hates everything, but somehow really enjoys her. Interesting. But the fact that it was the daughter, that was probably the most shocking and interesting thing is I wanted to continue at that point. And we said it earlier with around the 85% was once we found out about the daughter, I wanted more. I go, okay, now I'm into this. I want to know what happened. I want more story. Why is she in a cell? Why is the step uncle, I guess, or half uncle? Yeah.
So now he's going to come in and try and take them on, I guess. I have no clue. But yeah, how did she end up there just like her mom?
Yeah.
Does she know what happened to her mom?
Yeah.
What's Khan going to do when he finds out? Because now Vea knows.
Yeah.
Because she read the diary.
Yeah.
Is she going to make it out of there?
I don't know. That kind of was
She's
left up to...
pretending to be the pregnant maid.
The pregnant maid. Yeah. The mistress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then at like the 50% mark is when she goes off with Khan. And you're starting to pick up on, okay, there's definitely a connection between these two. That was what I kept texting. I should just read our text because I kept being like, I think I might have said to you on 3 separate occasions, I'm itching to know what the connection is between these two.
Yeah.
And you were further ahead than me, and you're like, yeah, you start to find out more pieces. But that's all I wanted. Like, I just was like, how do these people know each other? Because they definitely do, the way he was talking to her. So for me, 50%, or it's like 48%, I think, actually. That's when I felt like, okay, we have a love story to focus on now.
Mm-hmm.
That I can get on board with. That I can follow. And then it might have been like 85% is when I felt like some action was starting to happen. And I was like, okay, well, I'm 85% through this book. What are you going to do in the next 15% to wrap this up? I also had no clue going into this book that it was the first of a series. I thought this was a standalone.
Oh, okay. I only knew it was a series because I believe it was Fantasy Fangirls podcast actually had put that they were talking to the author and it was going to be 1 out of 3. I think I had just quickly watched the clip on Instagram about it. So I had that info going in, but I can see now why it probably was even more confusing. The fact that you were
like,
wait, I'm 85%.
I'm like, we've done nothing. Then when I'm like, oh, okay, this is definitely a series.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I wish there was more world building, but I have a feeling we're probably going to get more of that in the second and third of where the brothers are and what happens in their area, because we know where Rave came from and all of that situation of the trading of, I think it's the dragon blood of some sort. So that's how your currency is for that area. And then with Khan, it's actually coins. Gold. They don't do anything. So I like how you get different areas in that aspect. So there were things that I just really wanted more from that. I know it sounds weird, even though I rated it a 3, and probably if it wasn't a series, I would just say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to read it ever again. But I'm kind of tempted that when the second one comes out, just to read it and get more answers because I have so many open questions.
Okay, that was going to be my question for you is, do you think you would continue on and read the second book? So you're thinking at this point, yes.
Oh, yeah. At this point, I will, just to get some answers. But we'll see how many I get.
Now, what about when I give you this little gem? In the episode that Fantasy Fangirls podcast did with the author, so she says there's going to be 3 books, and then they asked her, okay, like people are dying to know when the second book is planned.
Yeah.
She's not even done finished writing the first draft. And she said, based off the timeline, she's thinking it probably wouldn't be available until, I think she said like October of 2025. So end of 2025. So, we're now planning, a year and a half from now. Are you going to be like, oh yeah, that book came out, I should pick that up because I read the first one?
It's funny you asked that.
Does that change your answer at all?
I think it changes it a little bit. And the only reason why is it's not going to be it's released, I'm reading it right then and there. Because there's a few others that we've read recently that when the sequel comes out, I am going to get that. Whether it's Kindle Unlimited or whatever, I'm buying it because I need to finish the story. This one definitely could be let me see how others feel about it and what we get. And low-key, shameless plug, probably gonna go and look at Fantasy Fangirls podcast, which I've mentioned 3 or 4 times in this episode already, but I think I would rather go to theirs to get more of an understanding because they do the deep dive in it can actually give me more information on it to see if I actually want to read it. So what about you? What do you think? What are your thoughts? I have a feeling of what you might say for if you're going to continue reading, but.
Well, seeing as I literally just finished the book last night, and that was a marathon of reading, like 3 straight hours, because I was like, I'm finishing this book if it's the last thing I do. And immediately when I finished it, I said, nope, I do not think this is a series for me.
Yeah.
So my answer right now is I'm leaning towards I would not read the second one, but that's even like if it was coming in 2 months, and this is still somewhat fresh in my head. The thought now of the second book not coming out to the end of next year, there is no chance in hell I'm going to remember any of these details from this first one, and then I would be like, oh, I have to reread that so I can be refreshed on what's going on. And I feel like I would end up in the same predicament where I'm going to reread it and still be like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not picking up the second book. So I think for me it's a no. But if I see a lot of people really raving about it and saying it's really good, maybe I'll pick it up. I'm sure it's going to be a Kindle Unlimited thing like this one was. But I probably would not reread this first one and just watch some deep dive videos on what happened. Or maybe re-listen to this and reignite my anger.
Fuel your hate fire.
Yes. I don't know. I feel like we've read better fantasy books.
Yeah.
And while I enjoy fantasy books, I would still say the genre is hit or miss for me because I like them on the more beginner side of fantasy, if that's a good way to describe. Hopefully that makes sense. I like it when there's some world building, but it's not anything super crazy, and it's not like every single aspect of the world is different.
I agree. I'm with you 100%. I never have seen Game of Thrones in my life, but to me that's too much if that was to be a book, because I honestly would just need to start writing out who everyone was and what they meant to each other in the storyline, because I don't do well when it comes to too many characters and too much detail. It goes in one ear and out the other. That's how I end up thinking of things. So I probably couldn't.
Game of Thrones is a book. It's a book series.
Great.
But he didn't finish writing the series before like the show caught up to where he was at. So then like the show had to make up their own ending because I don't even think the series is done yet. And I completely agree. Game of Thrones, those first couple episodes in the first season, you're like, what is going on? But then they figured it out. You start to pick up on it. And you get the little pieces of the world and you start to figure this out. Because again, context clues, I just really got annoyed that there was no description in the beginning. Moon is a dragon that, I don't even know if that's the one that goes in the hot weather or the cold weather. But like one line.
Yeah. Yeah, and
why is it, Sarah J. Maas has a lot of world building.
She does.
There's whole other species, all sorts of things. In Crescent City, there's literally different species. We have like mermaids, fae, werewolves. Like, I wasn't confused reading that because she provides you information along the way to help you understand what's going on. So like it is possible.
Oh yeah, you feel as if you're immersed in the world and you've just literally stepped into it. And you see this thing to the right. This is what that is, and this is what they do, and then you get more of the person on your left and understand, and then they might give you a little nugget of information. You'll need that a little while later, but at least it's important to the story. And the one thing I do want to bring up that I hope that she brings back, because if she doesn't, I'm completely confused by it, was when Rave, that cat, that basically the truth teller or whatever it was, or the vision seer, whatever the cat was, when she goes to
at the quill shop.
No, when she goes to the tribe and they basically are fighting for her to marry to them. I hope they bring that back because they mentioned that she is referenced as Kolu, or I'm probably saying that wrong as well.
Wait, I'm confused. There was a cat there?
It was a feline who basically was the something herder of it.
I've
fate
never felt
herder.
more dumb in my life than on this episode. This is like back in high school when you were given required reading and you read a couple of the chapters, but not all of the chapters, and then you're saying in the discussion, like, haven't gotten there yet. But the thing is, I've read this whole book. The only thing I remember from when she was in that fight was the dragon. I think it was a dragon. The fate herder. Whatever it was called.
Yeah.
But was that actually a cat?
They said it was something along those lines of
They
a
said
majestical
feline
beast.
because in my head it was a
Did you
dragon
have-
meets a chameleon. He blended in to the wall. That's what I pictured. A dragon. A full-on fucking dragon that could go like translucent. Oh my god.
I can see why you're
excuse myself
completely-
right here. I was like, what cat are you talking about? I thought it was a color changing dragon. And they were like,
Oh, I
no
love
one
it.
has seen him in a while. I'm like, how are you missing him? A dragon's huge.
Yeah, whatever it was in terms of the fate
Excuse
herder.
myself right now.
I love it. Yeah, when she went to that
feline.
tribe, when the feline brought her to the tribe for them to fight for her honor, whatever it is, I hope they bring that back because I just want to know, were they basically saying that fate is saying Khan and Rave have to be together because they need their offspring to basically create the next generation of great things?
Yes.
That part,
This
I wish
part,
it took up more
I
of
understood
it.
this.
That was the only thing I think I fully grasped.
100%. That's what it means because she was trying to get away and then it kept pushing her. No, you gotta say. Just so that Khan could come. He had to fight for her honor. And then at the end, that medallion thing, he was like, no, this means more than you think. You have to keep it. So 100%, which means that the daughter, which I'm not even going to attempt to say her name, Kizari.
Kizari?
I'm going with that. Kizari. Kai. I'm calling her Kai for short. Kai. She definitely is going to be some big character if their offspring is supposed to.
Yeah, she already has the crown on her head melded to her head too.
Yeah, but that seems dangerous to have that.
Also, I don't know how they got it off of Elwyn when she died. I don't know how that necessarily gets ripped from their body. Add it to the list.
Add it to the list of questions that we have.
I need some answers, Sarah. I need some answers.
I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea. I know, which again, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. But people are saying this is also one of the top fantasy books, which we read Heartless Hunter, 2 months ago, because people were like, this is the fantasy book of 2024. And I believe we both gave that one a 3-star.
Yeah.
And then we were bamboozled yet again by this one. This is the fantasy book of 2024. And 3-star, 2.5-star. Who's giving these people the power to say this is the fantasy book of the year? I'm sorry, did we not all read Fourth Wing last year? Have we not read a Sarah J. Maas book? Neither of these compare. If I had to pick out of the two, though, I'm going Heartless Hunter.
I'm 100% with you. I
That
think
was
we were
at least
spoiled.
easy to understand.
It was easy to understand because there was enough world building, but not too much where you were confused.
You dipped your toe in.
You dipped your toe. You had characters that were important to the story at that moment, but you found out about other people later on that could lead to what the second book would be about. Is, this person becomes popular at 80%. Not super popular, but we're going to mention them. And then we're going to sneakily slide this in so that you know that this is going to be for next time. So that's what I like.
I left that book being like, this one wasn't my favorite, 3-star, middle of the road.
Yeah.
But the way she set it up at the end, I said, ooh, the second one has potential for a 5-star.
I completely
I'm going
agree.
to read the second one. This one, it got interesting at the end. I don't think she personally did enough to set up a sequel for me because I don't know what's going to happen in the sequel. All I know is I left with a bunch of questions of hope she answers this in the sequel.
Yeah.
But ending it with the daughter that no one knows exists really, or that she's connected, is just in this cell. Okay. But Rave has no clue about her. So is she going to go save her? I wish Rave had found out at the end and she was like, well, I need to go find her. And that we knew was going to be I have no clue what the plot of the second one's going to be.
I have no idea either, but the only thing I can think of that's going to string everything together is that scavenger king that's really the half brother of the four siblings.
Oh, yeah.
That's my only thought. But what was interesting too, yeah, but I question where he came into the timeline of when he was born, because hear me out here. He was torturing Rave at some point in her life when she was Rave, not when she was Elwyn, but when she's Rave. Everyone else in the family knows who she is as soon as they look at her and say, this is Elwyn. How are you still alive? What happened? We saw you go up into the sky with your dragon. You were supposed to be dead. How does he not know who she is unless he is so far, maybe he was brought in farther, from the story. Maybe his mom told him, oh, this is who your family is,
I thought
There's
he was
so
a
much
half-brother. I thought he was,
yeah.
Khan's half-brother.
Yeah, so I just don't know how he doesn't know Elwyn is my question.
This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The prick of a dad, some little side piece,
Yeah.
knocked her up. That is the scavenger king. The dad has nothing to do with him, so he doesn't ever interact with the brothers.
True.
But he finds out from his mom, that's your father. And now he's just getting jealous and pissed. Okay, so you all can be kings, and you want to ignore me and act like I don't exist. I'm going to form my own way to becoming a king, because it sounds like he's the king of, the underground area. He's not, a king of, a kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's because, right, he's at the pits, which are, that undercity thing that they talked about.
Yeah, because even when the other was going to kill Rek, they referenced the pits and, oh, you never make it out of there alive. Mm-hmm. So he definitely is a king of a space, and it's
this underbelly of society. So he found his own area that he could be a ruler of, but he's not an official king of a territory.
Yeah. Which brings so much more.
I think the undercity is within one of the brothers' territories, and so I think they don't know he exists. So then he wouldn't have known about Elwyn. That's what I'm thinking.
That makes sense.
As we've picked up, I literally thought the dragon was camouflaging himself, so I probably missed many details that probably explained the relationship.
Yeah, I'm just so intrigued on that, honestly, and this is where sometimes when we start series that aren't completed and we're going to be getting the second and so on for, third, fourth book, a year or two afterwards, it's so tough because I have so many questions that I want answers to now, and I have no patience to wait.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cliff notes of what happened, because I want to re-figure out what's going on once they give us the second one, because I think the Scavenger King is going to be a huge part of it, but I just don't know how they're going to do it. And I hope they do it justice, is my opinion. Because I'm hoping the second one's better than the first, is my hope for the series.
Yeah. I don't know. I still feel like I haven't found what my top fantasy book of this year is. I read a good amount, and I know you've read a good amount too. Yeah. Nothing, though, that's wow.
I think we're chasing a high of Fourth Wing.
I'm chasing the high of Fourth Wing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so tough because I do keep comparing things back to how Fourth Wing did things, or how Sarah J. Maas writes her books, and I need to stop because I think individual ones are good, but what level of fantasy are you getting? Is it an introduction style fantasy books, or is it more of those intricate ones that I might need to put more time and thought into? So I need to stop doing it a little bit, but we definitely have the unpopular opinion, I think, with this one, because so many people have been rating it a 5, and I'm just confused.
Yeah. The average rating on Goodreads is a 4.2.
Yeah, I don't know who's rated.
The first review on Goodreads I saw was a 1 star, so I related to that one. But then the rest were all 4 or 5, and I need to dive in to see what people... But they might be people that read more fantasy, and they're more invested,
right,
or they're more used to this style. It's just not my personal cup of tea, and I can tell when it's something that I'm not excited to pick up. And there were parts where I would get into it, and then once I'm reading, I'm pretty much in a groove. I could keep reading. I can binge a book in one day if I'm really into it. And there was definite parts where I was okay, I've read enough of this today. My brain literally cannot hold any more of this information, and trying to decipher what's going on anymore. I need to stop for the night.
I could tell that I wasn't as into the book because we had the wedding festivities over the weekend and I wasn't waiting to get back home. I wasn't saying, oh my God, I need to go home now because I need to read my book. And that's when I could tell.
And I will say that this book, I had a ridiculous reading streak on Kindle. You know, it tells you like how many weeks and how many days in a row.
Yeah.
So I'm at like 80 something weeks in a row, have never missed a day, and I lost my streak because I didn't pick up my Kindle one day.
Oh, that's the worst. Excited. Yeah.
So another strike for Miss Parker.
Totally hitting the unpopular opinions with all of this lately, but you know what?
It's fine. They're not all going to be hits, but this is why it's good that we do these, because I honestly would have stopped the book probably 25% in when I texted you after the prologue and I was like, I literally read this twice. What is going on? Yeah. So confused by that. I would have probably stopped the book there and been like, this does not seem like my cup of tea. But we pushed through because I knew we were reading it for this.
Exactly.
And we get introduced to different writing styles. Now we can say we've read it. It's a popular book. And we have thoughts. Well, you know, and you're not always going to agree with what everyone thinks. And I will say, you know, like I've compared this to Sarah J. Maas, saying I like her style. She does it well. But I do want to just say, I said in the last one, Throne of Glass was not my favorite series by Sarah J. Maas. That one took me months to get through. I had to read books in between as like palate cleansers, which I don't usually have to do for series that I like.
Yeah.
And this book gave me the same feeling as Heir of Fire and Tower of Dawn did when I was reading those two books in the Throne of Glass series, where it is like, I am not enjoying myself, but I know I need to get through these books to get through the rest of the series. Yeah. And it was just like I just want to get this done, but I'm having a hard time even understanding what's going on. Like, Heir of Fire, I think it's the third one. I really struggled with that one because you come up, like the second one is really good, and then you go to Heir of Fire, and it was so confusing to me what is happening. And I wanted to keep going with the series because I had already invested time. So I just want to say, Sarah J. Maas has some misses too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, once we finish the entire Fourth Wing series, maybe we'll all look back and say, you know what, Iron Flame was a miss
compared to the rest that are to come for that one.
I'm just trying to give it some type of positive spin.
Yeah.
Oh, and who knows, maybe the other two books in the series are going to be amazing.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I just feel like
yeah,
she did not create a strong enough foundation for me to continue, because I'm just still so confused about basics in the world.
Yeah.
That agreed. I feel like by the end of the first book, I should have a handle on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just started skipping out parts in my brain to just understand what was happening with Khan down the line. I think that was my main goal, was what's happening with him and what's his story going to be. And then when I find out that Kai is his daughter, I go, ooh, okay, I need to know more about this. And yes, I'm going to keep using that nickname.
Yeah. I will say, though, she had some very poetic language in the book, the way she wrote their romance. Mm-hmm. There were some sentences I was like, ooh, I like that. And she could write some spicy scenes. So, like, her actual words, she was good. That's not the part of the writing style that I don't like. And there was a lot of ways that she described, like, their relationship that I liked. And I thought that part she did really well. I wonder if she's written romance books before.
Yeah, because the descriptions of even where they were, what the rooms looked like, or their little cocoon area in the jungle, I had no problem understanding that and what it looked like. It was really just the putting all the dots together and tying the pieces of the puzzle. It was really, I think, what my confusion was.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, not my fave, but we made it through.
Exactly.
And now we won't have FOMO. We've read it.
Yeah.
And it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I paid $0 for it.
Exactly. It was free, so it worked out for me.
And we need to figure out what the next book will be, so we'll probably announce that in the next episode.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to try something that's not a fantasy book.
I'm thinking
Done 2 fantasies in a row. I think we need a palate cleanser in between.
I think so.
Yes. Oh, and like one other non-fantasy, not related to this book thing that I need to get your opinion on, but it's book related, so we can add it, keep it in here. Did you watch Bridgerton Part 2?
I haven't yet. But I keep getting spoilers. I keep getting spoilers from E-News, so I don't want to... I've been off social media pretty much for that reason.
Okay. Whenever you finish it, let's just give like 5 minutes to it in whatever episode.
Yeah.
Because we need to chat about what they're doing, like the direction they're going in that is changing the books.
I was going to say, I keep getting glimpses of it completely changing. So I'm so curious how they're going to be changing each of the sibling stories.
Yeah.
Or do they even get a story? Who knows?
That's the other question that is up in the air. I will say my conversation I want to have with you is about one specific sibling story that seems to be changing and going down a different path. It's getting a lot of backlash, I guess. People are like really upset. The fans of the book are really upset to the point where Julia Quinn had to release a statement.
Oh, wow. See, my thing is I don't want to go too far into it because I know we'll talk about it when I watch the second part. But what frustrates me is a book is meant to be how it is in that sense. When we do adaptations of the book into movies or shows, there's so much more freedom that the directors can choose on what they want to go. And if you think about it, if they just did a carbon copy, I don't think it would have as much hype as it would if they add a little more into it. Now, granted, I'm talking about this before I even know what's going on, but I've seen it happen so many times when there's a book turned into a show that people get up in arms about why something was completely done a certain way and why did they go that way, blah, blah, blah. They should have kept it exactly. But, I mean, even the Pollen story in the first half is different than how it was in the book. So, and I think they did it justice so far, so.
Yeah, I like when certain things are changed, but this, like, certain things that aren't crucial to the core of the story, where, to me, this is, like, a monumental, like, you are changing the integrity of the story.
Oh, okay, so it's, like, a completely different story, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a completely different story without spoiling. Like, let's chat more when you finish it.
Yeah.
Like, even if we have to talk about it offline. I hate that I just said that, but like, because I know you'll have thoughts, and I think we'll have similar thoughts about it.
Yeah, I'm curious. All right, that honestly might be my thing. This like the next upcoming days.
I will say the second half was really good.
Yeah, I've heard it's phenomenal.
I really liked this season.
Yeah. So far, it's my number one out of the 3.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. The first season's good because, like, introduced us. I really did not like the second season because I did not really like those characters. This one was good. And I'm excited for the 4th one.
I know. We'll have to talk about it more once I finish it. That way we can really deep dive into it because I'm curious for your thoughts.
It's maybe... It's in the last episode that you'll so like the second half, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and it's at the end.
Good to know. Okay.
So you'll know.
You'll be getting a text from me immediately.
And you'll be like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Those are all my thoughts.
We'll table that for next time. Well, if you're still listening to us, thank you. Like we always say, we're so happy that you're on this journey with us. As we've been reading some interesting books, had some highs and some lows, as you've probably heard from this episode here. We're going to continue dropping episodes the first and third Wednesday of the month. And for more things, Booktrovert, and see updates on our book club episodes, what's going on, any fun things, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at BookTrovertsPod. Leave a rating, a review, send us some book recommendations because it seems as if we're in a rut right now, so anything would be appreciated.
And we still need to pick our next book club, so
yeah.
If anyone has
a
suggestion,
stay tuned for that, and if anyone gives us something to be helpful,
something good.
Exactly. And we'd love to hear all of your thoughts. If you agree with us on this episode or if you completely disagree and think that we are absolutely insane. So, curious on what you're thinking. But thanks again for hanging out with us.
Bye.